Hi, and welcome to our podcast, Learning Leading Now, where we talk all things education and Mobile County Public Schools. I'm your host, Director of Communication, Renee Phillips, and our co-host today is
Mike Herndon, Public Relations Specialist for Mobile County Public Schools.
And we have a special guest from Citronelle High School.
Hey, I'm Stephen Watts, counselor at Citronelle.
Counselor at Citronelle, not only the counselor at Citronelle, the Alabama's High School Counselor of the Year.
Right, so secondary school counselor of the year that covers middle and high school throughout the state of Alabama.
That's pretty awesome.
Thank you. What an honor. It really is.
That's cool. I know you work hard up there every day, and so we're very proud of you.
Absolutely. How do you get an award like that? What did you have to submit?
So it starts out with a nomination. I was nominated by Dr. Motley and Dr. Walker, our supervisor and director of guidance and counseling here in the district. The committee notifies you that you've been nominated, and the application includes listing the goal, that one of the goals you've worked on as a school counselor in the past year, and what you learned about your own professional practice and working toward that goal. And that's a data-based goal. So how did you work to identify what your students need, and how did you deliver that intervention? It asks about your advocacy for students and your school counseling program. How do you provide access to your program? How do you remove barriers? And all of the answers to those questions get submitted, and it goes away, and you never know really who the committee is. It gets reviewed by a committee, and then you get an email magically one day that says, hey, you won. So that's what happened.
Well, we have a lot of great counselors in Mobile County that have won some state and national awards. So you're in good company, aren't you?
You know, I am. We have a whole host of really great school counselors here. And I think one of the things that makes me so excited about this award is I get the chance to sort of highlight the work that sometimes goes unnoticed.
Mm-hmm.
Education, we know, can be sometimes a thankless job. And it's one of the great things about a podcast like this, that it gets the word out. And I know you guys do a really good job with Facebook. I know you just spotlighted Citronelle, and being able to see the good things, the good people that are in our schools. And school counselors are no exception there. We have a lot of really good school counselors who are doing good work, and they're making a positive difference in students' lives.
I say it all the time. We really do have the best students and the best teachers and the best counselors.
Yeah, well,
ever.
Thank you. Thanks.
And the best podcasters, right?
That's right. Absolutely.
So we want to talk more about counseling in a minute, but one thing too is we like to talk about, we're employees of Mobile County Public Schools. We're also parents. I know a lot of our listeners are parents, and so I've got, I like to say 2 middle schoolers, but now one is halfway done with 9th grade apparently.
Wow.
Mike has 2 graduates, and you have a young... I
have a first grader. I do, who's in a Mobile County school. I do. He rides to school with me, gets to ride the bus to his elementary school. And sidebar here, let me say hats off to elementary school counselors.
Yes.
I know some folks are like, I could never do high school. Give me high school all day. But elementary school counselors, they are delivering over and over, and in a high-intensity environment.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, very, very happy with my son's elementary school experience, happy that he's able to go to school in my feeder pattern.
Yeah.
One of the things I love about the Citronelle community and having a student who is my own child is, I know his principal, I know his assistant principal, I know his teacher, and all 3 of those people have students who are mine in my building. So it's sort of a reciprocal relationship. We're working with each other's students, and I love that.
Community.
That's right. It is a sense of community in a small community, but then the relationships that build that community. I love that.
Yeah, and Mike, you do the school spotlights, and you just spotlighted
Citronelle High. Yeah, exactly. And the teacher that we spotlighted, Roseanne Bird, mentioned that same exact thing. She went to high school at Citronelle and went off and taught a couple other places for a few years and has been back for 10 years. And that sense of community and knowing her students' parents and grandparents and all of that it was really important to her, and she feels like it's what makes Citronelle special.
Yeah.
Miss Bird's she's a great teacher, by the way. She may not have tooted her own horn, but she's a fantastic teacher. But she's right. Citronelle High School covers about a third, the northern third of our county.
Mm-hmm.
But it still has that small community feel. And the name, yes, is the name of the town. The name of our school matches the name of our town. But we're serving a lot of communities beyond that. But it still has that small school, small town feeling. I guess that some people would call more of a family feeling, but we do have that. And I haven't always worked at Citronelle. I'm from that community, but I worked in Mobile for a long time in Pritchard. I worked at Viger, I taught at Viger, and coming back to that community and being able to work there and build those relationships has been fantastic. So it's a great place to be. We have a lot of good things happening at Citronelle. We really do. I'm happy to represent them.
And I saw a few of those things while I was up there this week, including the manufacturing program with Mr. Locke.
It's fantastic.
It was really impressive what those kids are learning.
They are. You get those kids talking about his machines. I don't even know all the names, but they just can take you through the process and are passionate about it. He's building that. Coach Locke is. He's building that in those students. And I'm happy to see the growth they've had and the success they've had in the manufacturing program.
And we had your Signature Academy specialist on homeroom.
This Craig.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And a student, and just fantastic things that y'all are doing up there
It really
at
is.
Citronelle.
It really is. You know, one of the things that makes Citronelle unique is we have our own career tech center. So I'm sure that Miss Craig told you a lot about that. But in a lot of ways, our high school campus looks like a community college campus. So we have programs in public service and in welding and manufacturing, health science, engineering, and they are in some ways their own department that serve only Citronelle students. So it's a great environment, and our students leave us when we say they're college and career ready. We mean it.
Yeah.
They have the credentials to show that.
And the student, I think her name was Paris.
Paris Roberson.
Yes. And so she was saying that she got to do one of our internships
Yeah.
at a steel plant.
She did.
And so she didn't know what type of engineering she wanted to go into, and that kind of confirmed for her. I think it was mechanical, because she tried
Sounds
the
right.
chemical and the mechanical. But I was like, and part of me was like, yay, girl power. Like she's in that plant doing all the engineering, and she told me all the things and the processes that she knows and does, and it all went over my head. But it was just so focused. Like that's what I love about our kids. Like they're focused on not just I want to go to college and be an engineer, but I know what kind I want to be.
Right.
You have an engineer.
I had
Almost.
one who started out as an engineer
Oh.
and now
An
is going
almost
to be a
engineer.
chemist.
Hey, that to me though, that is so smart to be able to do that.
She,
Science. Yeah.
Yeah. She's always, I don't know where she got that from my father-in-law, not from my wife and I. We're English, in the English side of the spectrum, and somehow she got the mathematical and the science brain that my father-in-law had. So she'll be graduating from UAH this spring. So
Wow.
awesome. Yep. Out looking for a job, and she wants to stay in Huntsville, and there's a lot going on up there, but a lot also going on if she wanted to come back here.
Yes.
And I know, you were talking about the kids at Citronelle. We have seen so many of them go straight out of Citronelle into internships and jobs right
right.
up the road in the manufacturing sector here in Mobile County. There's a lot going on here and a lot of
Right.
opportunity.
Right. Well, Citronelle has one of the largest, I think, in the district, number of students who go into internships. Our internship program has grown, and I'm sure that part of that is our proximity to all the plants on 43. But I think a good example of students who they have a plan, an idea, is you mentioned earlier Brandon Gibson, who you interviewed yesterday. We call him Gibby at Citronelle.
Impressive
And
kid.
he really is, and he has lots of opportunities open to him, and whatever he chooses to do, whoever picks him as an intern, they'll be lucky to have him. So having the academy there to build those skills does make our students marketable, and they're able to go and do really good things. And some of these students, I've had seniors who've graduated, and then within months after graduation, they're making a really, it's an enviable salary that they're making in industry. So it's a good place to be, good place to learn and start from.
So Brandon Gibson that you mentioned runs all their lighting and sound for school productions. He's the guy they call when stuff breaks down. He has like five or
Kids can
six
fix
different
things,
jobs.
I've
Yes.
noticed. Yeah.
Tinkers.
Has like 5 or 6 different jobs, working on a farm, at a car dealership. He's on their small engines competition team, and raises chickens and pigs at home, and just had
in
like
his spare time, raises.
and all his spare time that he has. Just impressive. I
That
thought.
is. I just love just the wide range of our kids. We just have the best students. So So I have a question for you too, because I've got a 15-year-old at home, and we were talking about this before we started. And I want to ask you about it because parents may want to know about this. So my 15-year-old, he's supposed to read the book to go get his driver's learner's permit. He hasn't yet. He will. He will. And I told him, I'm not taking off work to take you to take the test until you've read all 80 pages, because I'm old-fashioned, printed it out. You need to read it. And it's a little boring, he says, like if I'm parking on a hill and I have to turn my wheel this way so it doesn't come onto traffic versus this way if I'm uphill or downhill. And, I don't even know if I know that. I told him there's the parking brake that you would put on. But so he's learning all these things, but it's important. As I told him, I'm not going to keep reminding you, but until you read this whole book and are ready to take the test, we're not going to go do it, because this is your life's at stake. Other people's lives are at stake. But so you obviously work with kids and their schedules. That's part of what you do.
Right. It's a part of what a high school counselor does.
What options do we have? Because one thing I know that when we were 16, we had to go do the driver's test and all that.
With a state trooper.
Yeah.
Right.
But now we can do the driver's ed where they get the road test out of the way.
Right.
But first, what they do when they're 15, they go get their permit.
So you need your permit. When I begin, my colleague and I, we meet with our freshmen. We'll do this in March this coming year. We'll meet with them and talk about, okay, driver's ed is one of your options for the upcoming 10th grade year. And one of the questions we're going to ask, when is your birthday? This is so confusing to students to choose when your birthday is. It can be so confusing because we try to look at it by quarter, and then they say, well, are you 16? No, I'm already 16. I'm 15. It can be so confusing.
Right.
And so we've tried to simplify this for students. We want to know when you turned 16. Have you turned 16? And then the next question, do you have your permit yet? That test is important because even though you can take the class without a permit, you can take driver's ed without a permit, you cannot drive with a Mobile County instructor on a public road without being legal. You got to be street legal. You have to have
Which,
the
thank you.
permit.
That sounds like a pretty good rule to me, right? You must read the book. Pass
Sure,
the
it's there
test.
to protect someone. So one of the things that I mentioned before we started recording is, I always wind up having to change some schedules because a student thought that on, August the 30th, mom was going to take them to get the test and they were going to be good to go. And then September rolls around and now they're not ready to take driver's ed. So for all the kids listening in 10th grade, you need that permit before you can drive.
Right.
And once you drive, once you've completed the course and toward the end of the course, you drive with your instructor, you take the test, and it avoids having to go back to the DMV and drive with a state trooper. So that's one of the big advantages. And then mom and dad are going to appreciate the insurance break. So.
Yeah, because and we got that when we were teenagers long time ago, but you get the insurance break, but then just being able to take the test and know that you've passed it instead of going down there, because I've heard stories of people taking their test and they don't pass it,
right?
And then they got to go back and do it again. But,
and it's intimidating when you're with a state trooper. You don't know, the uniform's intimidating, as opposed to an instructor you've been you've been with that instructor for an entire semester. So
what brave teachers those are too, that get in a car with 15-year-olds.
I could do it with my own kids. I wouldn't want to have to do it with anybody else's.
I'm kind of like that. On one hand, I'm kind of like, let's wait till we get through the holidays and then, because I'm a little nervous about getting in the car. I think he'll be a cautious driver, but
after you do it a few times, you get used to it.
It's going to be interesting. So read the book, study, take the test, get the permit, then sign up for driver's ed, take the class, get the discount on the insurance, and go ahead and do the road test, and then get your license. That's awesome. So there you go, parents. There's your tips for the driver's ed.
There you go.
So counseling, though, I think one thing that's been really cool over the last couple of years is that I'm very proud of with Mobile County is we've been able to hire more counselors because for a long time we didn't have one in every school.
That's
and now
right.
we have at least one in every school, and in the high schools we'll have several.
Right.
So is that a good move, do you think, that we've gone to?
It's a fantastic move. Every student deserves the work of a school counselor. School counselors' work is misunderstood a lot of times. I remember when I first became a middle school counselor after I left high school teaching, I had an aunt who said to me, that many students at the school need a counselor? Because some people think that one thing that we do is we sit around and we do therapy, and that's not what a school counselor does. My job is to support students' academic success. And we want every student to be successful. So every student deserves a school counselor, and it's a great move that our director and supervisor have worked toward here in our district, in having every school have a dedicated school counselor. Every student deserves that, and 100%. It's a great move for us.
So some of it is making sure they're academically on track.
Yeah, that's the biggest piece of what I do. So when I try to describe to a student what I do as a school counselor, when I want them to understand my role in their life, I have two big goals. I want you to be academically successful. That means you're learning, you're earning the grade, you're passing the class. And to do that, we're going to address if you have learning needs, yes. But beyond that, we're also going to look at social emotional needs, because if you're taking care of social emotionally, if you're developing socially and emotionally, then you're more likely to be academically successful. We're going to look at physical needs. Do you have a safe place to stay? Do you have food security? Do you have the clothing that you need? All of those physical needs are also going to be addressed if needed, because when you have those addressed, then you are more likely to be academically successful. But then, beyond that, I also want you to be safe. I want you, when you go home, to be in a safe environment. I want you in your own thoughts to be safe. So all of that as a school counselor is what gets addressed through our services.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
It really is, starting with the most basic to self-actualization. Can we get you to be the best version of you possible?
And you just can't understate that, because it's so important. If you're hungry, if you're struggling with anything, like, it's hard to ace that math test.
That's right. Sometimes when we hear the worst news ever, that could be related to a student, if we look into their lives, there's a lot of contributing factors to the sad news that we hear. And they bring all of that sad news, those situations, with them to school. So if we want them to be successful, we have to take them as they come. And that means finding them where they are, and whatever those situations are, and then looking for their strengths, looking for their successes, and building from those. And if we do that, we know we can support their success, and we can see them be successful.
And that support is important because we are in a mental health crisis.
Right. It became even more apparent after the pandemic, through the pandemic and afterward. But I was giving this some thought earlier, with the rise of social media and the role that it plays in students' lives. We saw mental health needs, right?
Yeah.
Taking all a collective groan. But as a school counselor, I have seen a rise in students' mental health needs with the rise of students' interaction on social media. And then that was just compounded. Throughout the pandemic.
Sally and I were talking about that today, because as school employees, we all do the mandatory training in the bullying and the suicide prevention and all of that, and child abuse. And one of the things it was talking about is the cyberbullying and how prevalent that is. And we were thinking about how lucky we were not to have had all of the internet and the social media and the texting and all that when we were in school.
Cameras on your phones.
Yes. But it's just and then so many kids want to get on it so young, and then if they're not supervised, but it's just such a scary world already, and then you add that component. And
it's
pressure.
Such a big issue because there's so many sides. When when you are a middle schooler or a high schooler, it's really hard to understand that when you're responding on social media, there's a person behind that profile, and that what you say feels impersonal because you're texting it, typing it, you're using a keyboard. But it's very, very real. And then I think beyond that is the permanence of it. It never goes away. Delete never means it's gone forever. So helping students learn that. School counselors do that. Our media specialists do a really good job with digital literacy, education, helping students understand their digital footprint and how to be responsible digital citizens. But it's a huge job that schools and parents have.
Any tips for parents on that?
I would say be open and honest as early as possible with your students. And if you're making the choice to give them the digital device, whatever that device is, do it with very specific and pretty structured guidelines. As the parent, it is ultimately your choice what they get to do and what they don't. And don't be afraid to put those guidelines in place and stick to them.
You can ground them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can't take their devices away.
Absolutely. And then when they do use them, let there be limits. Students, I've learned, will kick back against limits, but ultimately they know they're safest when they have those limits, and they'll respect us for that. So as parents, as a parent, I'm really careful about what my son is able to watch. He does not have a device. He's first grade, so he doesn't have a device. But I'm really careful about what he's able to watch from digital media. And, as a parent, I take that responsibility seriously. And I encourage all parents, look at the devices we're giving them, the time they're spending on them, and don't be afraid to take them if that's what we need to do.
I didn't give my son a cell phone until the summer of 9th grade.
Yeah, and I respect that. I do.
And that was hard, yes, but they kind of knew that was the expectation from the beginning was you're not getting it, so don't ask. So more and more of their friends were getting the cell phones. And
a lot of pressure.
Yeah, one friend ordered a bunch of Amazon that got delivered to the house,
That's fun.
That's kind of funny because they got all their money back by returning it. But there's much more consequences than that. And so, but it's just kind of, it was a struggle, but I think it can be one of the dangerous things that they hold in their hands, that phone or whatever. But we did that, and I think that was a good idea.
Yeah.
But sometimes you need it. I get it. Like for students, if they're riding home with somebody and all that.
Right. I know some parents who drop the Apple AirTags in their kids' bags. So there are other ways if you're trying to keep track of a child that don't have to mean your student has a device.
I didn't think about that, but find my phone, find my kid.
That's right. So literally you can see when the bus is arriving. I mean, down to the second it's about to show up.
That's funny. I do have Life 360.
Yeah. So that's another tool
We
that
still have it.
a lot of our parents use. Yeah.
You have it in college?
In college, absolutely. For us,
Why are
it's nice.
you out?
Well, my oldest really didn't like it that we kept it on there, but it's really nice because, occasionally in college they'll go off on a road trip, and we can look at the phone and say, okay, well, she said she was going to Auburn this weekend, and look at the phone. Okay, she's in Auburn. Everything's good. I don't have to bother her. And hey, did you get there okay? I know she's there okay.
It's peace of mind.
Yeah.
It's just that peace of mind, knowing they're where they're supposed to be, you know, in terms of being safe, more so than me necessarily worried about what they're doing. Because
good job, Dad.
I trust them pretty much with that. I just want to make sure they're not on the side of the road somewhere needing help.
Yeah. Good job. You've done a good job.
Hope so.
I do check the Life 360 because he gets a ride home, and so I get the little notice when he leaves school and when he gets home, and that's enough.
The other part of that is if I want to text him or ask him a question or something, I always check it to make sure they're not in class because I don't want to bother them when they're in class. So that's another little handy use of it.
Yeah. So what else do you have for parents? What should they know? And about their children in general, how can they stay in tune with how they're doing, how they're feeling, how they're...
Right. So certainly be open to those conversations. Sometimes that means we do have to turn the radio down in the car. We have to put our phones away. And this is something I have to work on as a parent myself. I have to tell myself to set some limits on my own social media so that I'm giving my time to my kids and I'm having the conversations. And I've learned that saying, well, what did you do at school today is never enough, because what he did at school was, played on the playground, or the one thing that was most exciting to him, and really what I want to know is what you do in math and so sometimes we have to be specific in the questions we're asking, but have that open line of communication with your students, and then keep that open line of communication. I'm a high school counselor, so if I could, I'd like to address that. Sometimes parents, we have a great deal of parent support at Citronelle, but I've also noticed, being a high school counselor and even a middle school counselor, that sometimes parents tend to begin to back away in middle school. We show up for the breakfast and the lunches and the parties in elementary school, and then we begin to back away in middle and high school. But even if your student acts like they don't, they need you in middle and high school. They need your involvement. They need the questions. Even as a parent of a college student, and you mentioned earlier, well, I have to make sure they're doing their homework.
You may need to ask even more questions when they're in college.
And the same is true. Sometimes, because they have increased freedom does not mean that they have increased their level of responsibility. That's what we all want. We all work toward that. So staying involved and staying on top, reaching out to the school, reaching out to the teachers, reach out to the school counselors. They're happy to connect you with the people who can answer the questions if it's not them. But keep those open lines of communication with the school, even into the secondary grades, because the people that are at the middle school and at the high school, they want your support. And if they know you want to give that support and you're involved, they'll meet you halfway, if not more, because they want that support from parents. So keep those lines open. Students will be successful. They're more likely to be successful when we're all on the team, same team, working the same direction.
Even if they say they don't, if they're
Even
like
if they
slamming
say
the car
they
door,
don't.
Mom,
Right.
don't say I love you.
Right. That's embarrassing. That's embarrassing.
I love you, honey.
It's part of being a
Drop me
part
off
of being
up the block, not right in front.
I told him I'm going to get one of those yellow bumper stickers that says student driver.
Yeah.
It's like, no, Mom. No, please don't, Mom. No. So
That's
we'll
funny.
see. So, and then students, if they feel like they need someone to talk to, they can come to you. They can come to their
Absolutely.
counselor.
Absolutely. So I have a great colleague at Citronelle. Her name is Heather Bird. We split the alphabet. So I have the first half. She has the second half. And we've worked diligently to have an open door policy. And I know counselors throughout this district have a very similar policy. Yes, we have schedules and we have plans that we're working towards. So we have a daily schedule, a monthly schedule, a yearly calendar that we're working toward. But at the end of the day, I'm there for students. So if a student needs me, there's a couple of ways at my school, and we've communicated this with teachers. Teachers can email us, and this happens sometimes. Hey, as this student wants to come see you, when would be a good time? I have an online Google form that students can fill out. It says, hey, I'm having this issue. When can we set up a time to talk? I have a calendar available to my students that students can go and pick a time available. So students could go schedule to meet with me tomorrow. And we allow that, especially in high school, because they know when they have an elective or a time that might be better for them to come. But absolutely, I cannot do my work as a school counselor without student interaction. So I've worked to cultivate that, and I want to see my students. I want to hear from them, I want to know their struggles, I want to know their successes, and work with them, whatever that is, wherever they are.
And it can be intimidating, but they need to know that we're here.
Absolutely.
We want to help you. If you're struggling, we are here.
I don't have a job if I don't have you as a student. And so my job is to do whatever I can to remove whatever barrier it is that stands in your way from you being, again, that self-actualization, being the best you can be. And, it's hard for me to address an issue if I don't know that it exists. So reach out to your counselor. Again, we have fantastic school counselors in Mobile County, and they all want to assist you in whatever their method is for contacting them. Yes, use that, but whatever you have to do, send them a message in Schoology. Every counselor has Schoology. We all have Schoology courses that students are in. Go there, send your counselor a message, and let them know what's going on. Ask the questions. We mean it when we say you're not going to embarrass us with a question. If we're stumped, we'll find the person who has the answer, but we want to help you.
Thank you, Stephen Watts from Citronelle, the Alabama High School Counselor of the Year, Alabama Secondary Counselor of the Year. I know that's it, but that sounds like second place in your first.
Well, first, but in the second set of schools, in middle and high schools. No, thank you for having me. It has been a pleasure. What
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you so much. We'll catch y'all next time on Learning Leading Now.